You are listening to One Nation Under Crime, a chronological true crime podcast. Each week, we go through our nation's history and discuss one case from each year. Starting in 1800, I am Kayla.
And I'm Leah.
And we're to episode 16.
We can drive legally. Woohoo!
Only 5 years till we can legally drink. 5 episodes.
Whoop, whoop.
Woo-hoo. So, yeah.
Such milestones.
I know. We're in the year 1814, and we're going to just get right into it this week since we always end up going off track at some point anyways.
We will eventually.
You love us. You're here.
We see lots of turtles.
So let's go. Our sources for this week, we have Women and Capital Punishment in the United States, an Analytical History by David V. Baker. We have an article from the Smithsonian magazine. Of course, the website Executed Today, the website Correction History, 2 separate articles from Murderpedia, an NPR article, lots of sources this week, guys. The Bureau of Indian Affairs, it's a government website, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation website.
Nice. Did you specifically source Brad on there? Like, is he your
I didn't do the NSA. So although I was probably with getting in the FBI, I was probably treading a little too close for Brad's liking. And so he probably was a little bit concerned, and as he should be.
Okay.
Because I'm figuring out who he is. So I'm going to report him to his manager because he's a little, look, he's a little too involved. He's a little too close.
Just saying.
And, you know,
it is what it is.
It is. And he'll live. So, anyway, hi, Brad.
Hi.
Yeah. So, the events in 1814, January 22nd, the first Knights Templar Grand Encampment in the United States is held in New York City.
Nice.
The Knights Templar. National treasure.
I know, that's what I thought. I watched that yesterday.
March 27th, General Andrew Jackson defeated the Red Stick, a portion of the Creek Nation tribe. Defeated the Red Stick at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend near Dadeville, Alabama.
Oh.
So, you know, just...
That's our neck of the woods.
We're everywhere. August 25th, British forces destroy the Library of Congress, which held around 3,000 books at the time. We still love you, UK. September 14th, Francis Scott Key penned the poem Defense of Fort M. Henry, which is also called the Star-Spangled Banner.
I know it well.
Yes. And Francis Scott Key penned it while watching the fort being attacked from a ship in the Baltimore harbor. It was September 20th, just 6 days later, that Star-Spangled Banner was published as a song with lyrics by Francis Scott Key and music by John Stafford Smith. As many people know, that is our national anthem. So,
would you like me to sing it?
Nope.
That was fast. Nice.
November 23rd, Vice President Elbridge Gerry, which we discussed last time, died in office from heart failure. His position remained vacant for the rest of James Madison's presidency, which would have been another 3 years because they were just
inaugurated.
Yeah, so another 3 years that post went unfilled. Don't know why.
Shouldn't the Speaker of the House?
This is 1814. It was wild times. I don't know.
Wild times. Wild times.
So,
interesting.
December 24th, the Treaty of Ghent was signed, which ended the War of 1812 between the U.S. and the UK and their allies.
Interesting.
1814, the year in and of itself, was also when the world's first complex machine was mass-produced from interchangeable parts, and it was Eli Terry's wooden pillar clock and it came off of production. It came off of the production line in Plymouth, Connecticut.
Interesting.
So it was the first clock made by machinery with interchangeable parts.
Huh.
It was a mouthful.
But that was a big deal.
It was a very big deal. So our births in 1814, July 19th, Samuel Colt, the inventor
Revolver.
who established Colt's patent firearms manufacturing company.
Look at me.
And he made the mass production of revolvers available to the nation.
Guess what my husband and father really like?
I know. He's also a Cancer, so watch your back. Mm-hmm.
You and your signs.
Look, just saying. It's interesting. Deaths in 1814.
That was the only birth?
That was the only interesting one.
Oh.
Yeah, one person was born in 1840. Just Samuel Colt.
Smarty pants. I was meaning that was God.
The rest were just like a lot of political people.
Okay.
Just like this person was in the house from this year to this year. And I was like, I'm good. It's fine. So the deaths in 1814, January 7th, Ira Allen, one of the founders of Vermont and brother of Ethan Allen, passed away. I will take a moment of silence because March 13th of 1814, Angelica Schuyler Church, the oldest daughter of Philip Schuyler and sister-in-law to Alexander Hamilton and sister to Eliza, passed away.
Angelica,
Eliza, and Peggy. You're welcome, guys. Weren't kidding when we said there would probably be one at least reference in each episode, especially at this time because it's still relevant. So,
yep. How did she die?
It didn't say, and I was too sad to look into it.
I was too sad.
Angelica's my favorite.
You are Angelica.
I am Angelica.
I'm probably Peggy. I'm sorry. I really probably am.
Peggy.
Daddy said to be home by sundown.
Yeah.
Daddy said to go downtown.
Yeah, and I'm the one that's like, you free to go.
Gotta know.
You free to go. So the episode this week is going to be a little different than what we have done before, and hopefully y'all will like it. This is one of those years that it was really hard to find crime that happened. And the case that I did pick for this week doesn't have a ton of information, but it's a really interesting case, and I don't think a lot of people know a lot about it. So this week, I'm going into a little more detail of one of the events in 1814, and then we're going to go into our case for the week.
Okay.
Our case for this week is Mary Antoine murdering her boyfriend. But before we get to it, we are going to go back to August 25th of 1814 and talk about the sole American killed in the 1814 burning of Washington, D.C. This was also something that I wanted to cover, but it was dealing with the War of 1812. There's a whole lot of background information. And while this one person was killed, which we'll get into, there's a reason that it's discussed and it's very interesting. But anyways, we're going to go into it. We've discussed Washington, D.C. briefly in previous episodes, just kind of talking about how the capital was in New York, then it was moved to Philadelphia, then it was moved to D.C. So I'm going to do a quick refresher.
Refresh.
Which we haven't really talked about D.C., so it's really not too much of a refresher. It's also known as just Washington or just D.C. It is the capital city of the United States, and fun fact, one of, if not my favorite place that I've ever visited. I would live there in a heartbeat. I love Washington, D.C. Still do after everything. Anyways, so it is located on the Potomac River and borders both Virginia and Maryland. The National Capital Region portion of the Washington metro area is also called the DMV, not to be confused with the Department of Motor Vehicles. It stands for D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. So if you ever hear anyone talking about the DMV area, it's D.C., Maryland, Virginia, because it's kind of that whole Washington area. And that's what it's called a lot. So just in case you're wondering.
Now you know.
The city was named, of course, after the first president of the United States, General George Washington.
Here comes the president.
It is one of the most visited cities in the U.S., with there being over 20 million visitors in 2016 alone. Washington was founded in 1791 to serve as the nation's capital, and Congress held its first session there in 1800 in the unfinished building. In 1801, Congress passed the District of Columbia Organic Act, which organized the district and placed it under the exclusive control of the federal government. That will bring us almost up to where we are now in history. Again, another topic I could talk about for a solid hour, maybe two. If enough people want me to go into more of the history side of important places like this, guys, you know what to do. 1, let me know. 2, most importantly, join our Patreon, and we will do it exclusively for our Patreon members. I'm not kidding, guys. I will do an entire history. I'll do a whole separate history podcast on Patreon. Like, I'm for it. It's fine. I'll do it. But I have to have enough donors. So go donate to our Patreon, and I will do it. In 1814, most of the United States were more concerned with the War of 1812 than anything else. This year specifically was overrun with news of the war because 1814 was the climax of the war. Tensions were high. Americans were overrunning Canadian settlements. The British were pissed off with Americans for attacking the Canadians. Also, think about what had gone on in the previous years. The Revolutionary War wrapped up just over 20 years before the War of 1812 began. And I can honestly just see the British at the time rolling their eyes like, these American idiots again. Like, didn't we already fight you once and we gave you your independence that you fought for? And now we're here again?
Yeah.
Can we not? Can we not? Because that'd be great. I mean, just saying. So it's not hard to believe that the British were wanting to make a statement once and for all. And we'll see exactly how they did that. We still love you, our listeners in Great Britain and in the UK. None of this is towards you. But still frustrating nonetheless.
And I am half British, by the way. Just saying.
I mean, I'm not half, but yeah, I'm probably like a quarter.
I'm a half breed. Like, for real.
So, during the Revolutionary War, they took New York City and ran the Patriots out, right? Well, this time they were going for the capital, and they weren't just there to take it over. They were there to burn it to the ground.
That's not nice.
President James Madison and the cabinet evacuated the city, and troops perched in the northwest of the city and watched the city go up in flames.
That's got to be heartbreaking.
Yes. And while, yes, it is very sad and it's rude, honestly, but you also have to think at the time.
It's war.
Canada was also still under the British Empire rule, and with Americans attacking Canadians, you're essentially attacking the British.
War. I mean, exactly. I know and that it's war, but I mean, just, to see
it's sad.
Your city.
Exactly.
Either way.
The intent by the British Army was to destroy important public buildings and go after only American soldiers, not citizens.
Right.
That was made a point. British General Robert Ross was infuriated when his soldiers set the Library of Congress up in flames along with the Capitol building. The Capitol building was intended. The Library of Congress was not.
Oh.
And so General Ross was furious when he found out that they took it as well. General Ross said, quote, "I make neither war against letters nor ladies."
Good for him.
The few residents left behind in the city actually commented General Ross's demeanor and described him as a perfect gentleman, even though he was there fighting for the British. So
that's a very good compliment.
It was.
I mean, he had a job to do.
I know. Then there was John Lewis.
Uh-oh.
He was an American who held a major grudge against the British. He and his brother Charles were impressed into the British Navy previously, and they had just been released not before. So impressment at this time was taking soldiers and forcing them into service with another country. So the British were notorious for doing this at this time, and this was one of the key factors that actually started the War of 1812. While Great Britain was fighting the Napoleonic War, they needed sailors to help fight France. And so the British were capturing thousands of American sailors and forcing them into the British Navy at the time. John Lewis made it a point to report that he was, quote, often and unmercifully flogged. The argument by the British was that John was a British subject. Well, while John was from the U.S., he was born in Quebec. And at this time, Quebec was the largest British colony in North America. North America, not the United States, guys. Just reiterating to some people, North America is not just the United States, even though some people think that it is. Anyways, there's other countries here. Anyway, get off that soapbox for a moment. So, one major possibility for John's anger is that he came from a long line of patriots. Would you like to try and guess who was in his lineage?
Tell me his name again.
His name's not going to help you.
Okay, then tell me.
His name's John Lewis. John Lewis's father, Fielding Lewis, was the son of Betty Washington Lewis, sister to George Washington, which made George Washington John Lewis's great uncle.
I mean,
and I put this in here last week's episode, which now it'll be probably 2 weeks ago. Christine from And That's Why We Drink said in their episode about JFK that he had rolled over. She was like, that sounds really bad. But to me, it was hilarious because you know me. She just said in their most recent episode that they were talking about JFK and how many conspiracy theories like JFK is included in. And they were talking about this group that is like suspected to deal with Roswell and stuff like that. And they were like, oh, JFK was a part of it too. And they were like, JFK is included in everything. Can we just leave JFK alone? And she said that JFK had rolled over so many times in his grave that he's just burrowed himself further into the earth, which is hilarious. And I would like to think that George Washington has done this as well.
You know?
Think about it. The government tried to bury him inside the Capitol building, which we discussed.
Yeah.
I did check on this from our Meriwether Lewis episode, and what I said was correct. Look at me. Washington's tomb is actually still 2 stories below the rotunda of the Capitol building. It was supposed to include a glass floor, which allowed the public to view Washington's tomb, not his body, but the tomb.
Thank goodness, not his body.
I know, but obviously it was never created. So anyways.
Weirdos.
They try to put your body in the Capitol building. Then his great nephew was essentially kidnapped by the British and forced to be a sailor in the British Navy. And then somebody tried to steal his skull from his grave in 1830. Old George has probably rolled over so many times that he is about to drill a hole in that cement sarcophagus that he is buried in. You can see it. You can see a skeleton foot popping out soon because he's done rolled over so many times in there. He can't go anywhere else. It's just going to be like a drill going through the side of it, and skeleton foot's going to pop out in a year or so. I am telling you. So back to the brothers.
Oh, my goodness.
Much like our other Lewis brothers who were related to Thomas Jefferson and tried to, use Thomas Jefferson's name to their advantage.
Which didn't work.
There is distant relation between this John Lewis and those Lewises as well.
No.
To kind of like tell you, Howell Howell Lewis was George Washington's nephew, and Howell was second cousins to Meriwether. So many connections.
Wow.
Anyways, they tried to use their great uncle's name to help get them out of the Navy and released back to the U.S. Charles's way of letting everyone know about his lineage was to get 2 tattoos of the letter GW and MW for George and Martha Washington.
Nice.
At this time, tattoos were made with gunpowder. Not the safest thing.
Oh.
Yeah, they went into it. It was gross. Anyway, John wrote...
And I bet they really, really, really hurt.
Yeah. So John wrote to his uncle, which was George Washington's favorite nephew. His name was Lawrence Lewis. So many Lewises.
Lawrence Lewis.
And he begged him to ask Congress for help and that he deserved to be free. John said in his letter, quote, "Particular as my dear father being a distant relation of General George Washington, now deceased." But right before the outbreak of the War of 1812, Lawrence Lewis finally gathered everything he needed to prove that the brothers were American citizens. Because, remember, their argument was they're British because they were born in Quebec. Well, in the documents, it was stated twice that the brother's father was George Washington's nephew, so that was what they needed. These documents were sent to the State Department and the Secretary of State at the time, James Monroe. But the brothers were released by the British before the documents could ever be looked at. So they were let go.
Well, that's good.
The release of John and Charles even made the Washington paper. They were mentioned in the July 4th, 1812 speech, which announced the War of 1812. And it stated, quote, "2 of the nephews of your immortal Washington have been seized, dragged, and made sailors on board of a British ship. They were kept more than a year. How, Americans, can you sit down under such indignities?" So, tension's a little high.
Yeah. But then they were released.
They were released at this time already. So yeah, they were probably there. John refused to let the British get away with the way he was treated and vowed, quote, "eternal and signal vengeance against the tyrants who had kidnapped and scourged him." I will go ahead and say in the last 2 quotes that I read, they used another word for kidnapping that I took liberty upon myself to change because it's problematic. Didn't appreciate it.
Oh.
They referred to them as slaves.
Oh.
Yeah, and I didn't appreciate that because a little different. little different. I was like, don't love that.
Yeah.
You were kidnapped.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you ever go to look it up, don't at me. I'm very well aware that it said something else and it did not say kidnapped. I took it on my own accord to change it. It's fine. I didn't directly quote him, so you can't sue me. Anyway. So it wasn't until 2 years into the war that John actually joined as a sailing master. He was dismissed from duty just a few months in. And considering that the U.S. was pretty desperate for soldiers and they were taking any and everyone, whatever he did must have been pretty bad and no one was saying what happened.
So he was pretty much crazy.
That's what I've gathered. Because, they were trying to get any and everyone to help fight. And then just a few months after he was there, they were like, you know what? We don't need you. You can go.
Thanks.
But no thanks.
But no.
So, he made his way to Washington just in time to see the British set fire to the city named for his great uncle.
Mm.
John jumped on his horse, grabbed his sword, and rode up to a group of British troops where he yelled a slew of obscenities and was waving his sword around while doing it.
Uh-oh.
Well, he was shot and fell off his horse dead.
Well,
his body was laying in the street as the British continued to set the city on fire.
Yeah.
The Washington City Gazette wrote a scathing article about this murder by, quote, British scoundrels, and stated, I'm not saying British scoundrels. I love you, our British listeners. And they stated, quote, thus they have shown their great respect to the memory of Washington and have proved to the world, to the misguided Anglo-factionists here, and that their respect to his memory is to murder his nephew and burn the second house he ever built to the ground.
Well, I mean, of course, this is again the press.
Exactly.
Of course, it was the U.S. that was being burned, and so they were, of course...
Right.
Yes, I get it. So, yeah.
Anyway, the second house is a reference to the White House, which they also burned at the same time.
Yes.
So that's what they were talking about. Later, the soldier who shot John Lewis claimed that John came upon them quickly, drunk, and threatening them. The soldier was then quoted as saying, I did not stop to inquire whose nephew he was, and that had nothing to do with the business. Bye.
He was waving his sword, threatening us, and I neutralized the threat.
So, yeah, that is the story.
I hate that.
Yeah. But that's the story of the only American who was killed in the burning of D.C. in 1814.
That's very sad.
So we're going to go into our next story of Mary Antoine. So September 30th of 1814, Mary Antoine was hanged in Madison County, New York for the murder of a fellow Native American. September 12th of 1823, Abram Antoine walked up to John Jacobs to shake his hand and instead took out a knife and murdered him.
Oh, well, that was quite the switcheroo.
So Madison County, New York is located kind of right in the middle of the state. The original occupants in the area were the Oneida Nation. The colonists came, of course, in 1683 and created early versions of counties in the state. And Madison County was originally a part of Albany County.
Were there bridges there?
I don't know.
Bridges, Madison County?
Yeah, not sure. The Oneida were allies to the Patriots during the Revolutionary War, and they were given land by the U.S. after the war to create a reservation for themselves by Oneida Lake, which was their traditional homeland, to which I say, how nice of you, U.S., to give them back a portion of the land that they were already living on only because they helped you in the Revolutionary War. Whatever. It's fine.
Well, at least they had land?
Nope. Bitter.
I was trying.
I will remain bitter. Anyways.
Then we shall call you Mara, because Mara means bitter.
It's fine. 4 other Iroquois nations were forced to give their land to the United States after the war because those nations sided with the British. Most of the Native Americans had already moved to Canada to escape fighting in the area during Sullivan's raid. We don't have a lot of time to go through this, but it was essentially fighting between the natives and the Patriots to run the natives off the land that was now, quote, owned by the United States, even though it was not. The raid went through the areas, destroying homes, crops, and winter stores that people had saved up to make it through the winter. Those who did not migrate north before the raid died of starvation that winter. In the late 20th century, the 3 recognized Oneida tribes of Wisconsin, New York, and the Thames Reserve in Canada filed suit in a land claim against New York State for its treaty and forced purchase of their ancestral lands after the American Revolutionary War, seeking the return of thousands of acres.
Thousands.
The U.S. Supreme Court had ruled the purchase was unconstitutional, as New York did not have the treaty ratified by the U.S. Senate and had no authority under the U.S. Constitution to deal directly with the Oneida, a right reserved to the federal government.
They did not go through the right channels.
The proper channels.
They didn't jump through the right hoops.
Which in turn killed all of these people during Sullivan's raid because the Patriots were like, get off our land. And they were like, it's not your land. And they're like, no, it is. And then afterwards, oh, oops. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Like that cringe face of the emoji. Ooh.
Oops.
Yeah. So anyways, gosh, in 2010, the state offered the Oneida tribe of Wisconsin more than 300 acres in Sullivan County in the Catskill Mountains.
Going to the Catskills.
With permission to construct a gambling casino and 2 acres in Madison County to settle their part of the suit.
2010.
2010. Mm-hmm. The reason I went in more in depth into the Oneida Nation is because they are at the center of our case for this week. And this is a classic, quote, classic, story of a love triangle gone wrong.
Ruh-roh.
There isn't any background information on any of the subjects in this case, so we're just going to get right into it. Mary Antoine was a 21-year-old Oneida Native American living in the Madison County area. On July 27th of 1814, Mary stabbed another Native American woman to death. Mary had a boyfriend from the Stockbridge tribe who left her. And rumor had it, the murder victim was the new love interest of her ex-boyfriend.
Oh.
The boyfriend had ended the relationship with Mary abruptly and moved on a little too quickly for Mary's liking. So, of course, instead of taking it out on the man who actually did everything, you know, like you should have done, Mary...
She gonna take it out on the girl.
Mm-hmm. Mary blamed the other woman for, quote, taking her man.
Oh my gosh. Girls, can we just not take it out on each other?
Right.
Can we just agree that boys can be stupid?
Men are garbage.
Not all men are garbage, but boys can be stupid, and we need to just agree to band together and, just not take it out on each other.
I mean, not all men are garbage, but most of them.
Not all men are garbage. There are good ones.
So... Exactly. We don't have any further information on the murder victim or on the boyfriend, but there was a big controversy surrounding the murder, but not about the actual crime itself. The Native Americans argued that the, quote, white man authorities did not have the right to interfere with their customs or to have any kind of jurisdiction over them. The Native Americans believed whether it were a petty crime, murder, or any other legal issue, they should handle it within their own nation. According to an NPR article, which is actually just from June of this year, the U.S. Supreme Court just upheld the ruling that tribal officers' authority to at least investigate and detain non-Native people that they suspect of committing crimes on the reservation while waiting for non-tribal law enforcement was upheld. So essentially, if you were a non-Native and you were on a reservation and you commit a crime, for the longest time, the rule was that basically you would need to call in non-Native law enforcement and you couldn't do anything. But now Native law enforcement can hold them until non-Native law enforcement comes to get them. However, this is problematic because a lot of times what can happen, and I read a few cases on this that happened, some non-native law enforcement will say they don't have time to come get this person, and you can only hold them for a certain amount of time, so they have to let them go. And so there is a epidemic, honestly, of a lot of non-natives on reservations getting away with crime.
Sure.
Because of this reason. Even like today, this is still going on.
People find loopholes.
Right. However, when Native Americans are not on the reservation, non-native law enforcement has full jurisdiction over the Native Americans. So how weird is that?
Yeah.
You can't do anything to a non-native if they're on reservation land. But if a native is off the reservation, then law enforcement can take over. Do it. I mean, it's like, it's so backwards. It's like, no. But okay. But no. Yeah. And again, I can create an entire episode on this stuff. I spend way too much time researching. I am telling you, it is ridiculous.
But you enjoy it. You enjoy the research.
But there's so much information on this stuff. According to the site BIA.gov, which is the Bureau of Indian Affairs, it is a legal name for an organization. Just putting that out there. The BIA provides police investigative. Nope. The BIA provides police, investigative, corrections, and law services across the expanse of, quote, Indian country. There are, again, these are direct quotes from websites. Don't. There are currently 574 federally recognized tribes within the boundaries of the United States and almost 200 reservations.
Wow.
BIA officers are responsible for maintaining law and order within the reservations by patrolling, enforcing tribal law, and making arrests. They respond to felony crimes, misdemeanors, and suspicious activities, but more serious crimes committed are referred to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the FBI. These crimes include murder, sexual and physical abuse of minors, drug trafficking, public corruption, violent assaults, and financial crimes, and gaming violations. However, the FBI was not appointed as a unit of special forces to the Department of Justice, or the DOJ. They were not appointed until 1908. So at this time, when this case was going on, local law enforcement was trying to enforce law upon the Native Americans, and the Native Americans were like, no, we will handle this.
Yeah, and this agreement hadn't been made.
Yeah, and at this time, the FBI was not there to step in and take over. So it was a big issue. Like I said before, in the case of Mary Antoine, none of these laws or statutes were put into place. And at this time...
I was going to ask, but I figured you were...
Yeah. Tensions between Americans and natives in the area were way high because of things going on. While the American settlers in this area were on good terms with the Oneida Nation, the natives felt that dealing with crime inside of the tribe was an overstep by Americans. There was a witness to the crime.
Who was the witness?
A local farmer named John Jacobs.
Jingleheimer Schmidt?
No.
I'm sorry.
I thought of it several times when I was typing. So it was his testimony that compelled the jury to convict Mary and sentence her to death.
Ooh.
Mary didn't really help herself either.
Oh, no.
It's not funny, but it's funny because this is just... She's already been sentenced to death at this point. I mean, there's nothing she can do, right? So... she said the woman deserved to die for stealing her boyfriend from her.
Oh, my
She's
goodness.
like, I did what I did. I said what I said.
I was going to say, I said what I said.
So, I've already been sentenced to death. So, yes.
Oh, my goodness.
So funny.
Ladies, again.
Go after the people who actually deserve it.
Don't
Don't
kill
kill
people.
them.
Don't kill people.
I mean,
wait. We're not saying kill people.
A few days before her execution, her father, Abram, and brother traveled to the area of the execution, painted and in warrior dress, appearing to be prepared for a fight. They also might have had reason to worry because Abram stated that the man who was the witness to the crime, John Jacobs, should die.
No.
Due to all of this, Captain Daniel Petrie, could be Petrie, unsure, made sure that other peace officers in the area were there and ready to jump into action if anything were to happen.
If anything went south.
Yeah. The day of Mary's execution, September 30th of 1814, there were many Native Americans in the village waiting. Captain Petrie spoke the native language, and he made it clear that the Madison County officers carrying out the law were not the ones who were responsible for the execution. The officers were only carrying out orders, and that they made sure the laws were upheld. So, like,
hey,
we didn't do this.
Yeah.
FYI. So,
we were following our leader's commands, just like you follow your chief's commands.
Right. Exactly. So, Mary's father, Abram, and her brother said their goodbyes to her on the scaffold before her hanging. And
she was to be hanged by the neck. Let me try that again. She was to be hanged by the neck until death.
Till death.
Okay.
So they simply shook hands and walked away without looking back as Mary's execution was carried out and she was hanged for murder.
It's very sad.
Mary Antoine, though, wouldn't be the only Antoine executed by Madison County.
Ruh-roh.
4 years after the execution, not 4 years, but 4 years, John stayed away, far away from Madison County, and he refused to return. He knew that Abram stated on more than one occasion that he would kill John for his testimony in Mary's trial. After 9 years, John was finally convinced to move back. And he was assured that he couldn't be harmed. Like, we're good, bro. Things are great. You're fine. Come on back. And John was like, all right, let's do this.
Uh-oh.
John was hoeing corn in his field one day with a group of men when Abram came walking across to greet them.
Uh-oh.
Abram shook hands with each of the men, making his way down the line to John.
And then,
when Abram reached John, Abram reached out to grasp John's hand and then slipped a knife out of the sleeve of his left arm, stabbed John 3 times in the ribs. Abram shouted, "How do you do, brother?" and ran away before anyone thought to grab him.
How do you do, brother?
How do you do, brother?
Nice. Wow.
Yeah. So
wow.
And he gone. Bye. He was like, I'm out. I did what I came to do.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So
how do you do, brother?
Abram was apprehended and quickly tried, convicted, and sentenced to death.
Wow.
Yeah. Sheriff Ezra Cloyes was the one to carry out the execution orders, and he was regretful of having to follow through them. He did not want to execute Abram because Abram Antoine fought with the Americans in the Revolutionary War, and Sheriff Cloyes remembered their time in the war together fondly and remembered how much Abram had done for them.
But he shouldn't have killed a guy.
And when an opportunity came to escape the custody of the sheriff, so like a bunch of people escaped the jail at one time, Abram deliberately refused and stayed in his jail cell, even though he could have ran.
Well, that was good of him.
On September 12th of 1823, 9 years to the month after his daughter's execution.
It was September 30th that she was executed.
At the age of 73, Abraham Antoine was hanged for the murder of John Jacobs in front of a crowd of 2,000.
Wow.
Abram Antoine's execution was the last public execution of a criminal in Madison County.
That's almost, my daddy is almost that old. Like that's like my daddy being executed.
Mm-hmm. So not only is the daughter executed, but then the dad is executed. It's like, ooh.
I mean, he shouldn't have done that.
But how weird.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
the daughter shouldn't have. I mean, I'm sorry. You don't kill over a guy. I mean, don't kill people. Number one, just don't kill people, but don't kill over a dude.
I mean, but what have we talked about? What are the main reasons that people murder?
I know.
Lust and love are right up there for reasons for murder. And clearly it's been going on for decades because it's still going on at this time
centuries.
too.
Not just decades, for centuries. But I mean, seriously, don't kill for a dude. I mean, I'm sorry that your feelings were hurt, but yeah, I mean, they're not worth it. I'm sorry that your feelings were hurt and it made you mad, but I mean, it ain't worth it.
Exactly. It's just not. And I mean, just Claire came to say hello, guys. Sure y'all heard her meow in the background. Anyways. Yeah, it's not worth killing over. And anyway, it's just ridiculous. And you killed someone in your own tribe.
Yeah, when your own people. You killed someone, period. I mean, someone's life. Well, number one, their life has ended, and really yours has too. Yours will never be the same. Even if you're not found out, your life will never be the same. You're going to have that guilt for the rest of your life. Or, I mean, hopefully you'll be guilty. Hopefully you're not a sociopath. But, I mean, your life will never be the same. And just so many people's lives are altered that don't have to be. Mm-hmm. And, just don't do it. Killing is bad.
Just don't. Thank you for your moral commentary of killing is bad.
You're welcome. That's my PSA.
PSA for the week.
Killing is bad.
Killing is bad. Dash Leah.
Can we all just get along? Be nice to each other. In a world where you can be anything, be kind.
I mean, sure.
But do make fun of people's last names as long as you're friends with them.
Yeah.
Because, well, seriously, if I don't make fun of Kayla for something, she thinks I'm mad at her.
Oh, yeah. That's true. That's true. That's how I show affection.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with my boyfriend is that's how I show affection.
I mean, if I don't get a sarcastic meme or something from Kayla, I'm like, you're quiet. What's wrong? And we check in on each other. She had a kind of stressful week, and I sent her a text.
Donate to our Patreon people. That's all I can say for the love.
I sent her a text. I was like, okay, 1 to 10. Where are you? How are you feeling? And she didn't text me back for hours.
I didn't see her text.
Apparently, she didn't see it. And so I sent her a text back, and I was like, okay, you're freaking me out. I'm assuming you're at a 12. How are you?
Yes, and my boyfriend went out of town this week. Usually I see him every day, most of the time.
Yes.
I'll see him a lot. And so he's out of town, and tragedy befell the household this week. We're not going to go into it.
No.
We don't know all the answers yet, but tragedy befell the household, and it was bad. And I am not an emotional person, and I was very emotional. And yeah, so Leo's like, I was about to be on my way with booze and cheese dip. I'm like, yeah, well, that's accurate.
Yeah, but she had really just not seen my text. But like, I hadn't heard from her, and I was like, oh my gosh, she is in the floor in the fetal position. This is bad. I'm gonna have to find a way to break the door down. I just need a key.
Fletcher's gonna have to use his little claw to like open the windows so you can get in.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, we check on each other though. I mean, with stuff like that, because I mean, you gotta have the friends that check on you with stuff like that, and we do. But yeah, we send nasty grams, but they're with love.
That was funny. I was like, no, I really didn't see it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But I mean, I'll be here with cheese dip and booze if she needs me to be.
Oh gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Speaking of a boyfriend out of town,
she's got to go pick him up.
I got to go pick him up from the airport. To go all the way to Orlando and not go to Disney World. Anyways, I can't handle it. Disney World sponsor us as well. Well, actually, Universal Studios sponsor us because Harry Potter World.
Not Wingardium Leviosa.
Leviosa. Not Leviosa. I can't with the TikTok.
I know, that's the first thing I thought of. Not me. Not Hermione.
Yeah. I'll try to post a link to that TikTok. If you watch Harry Potter and you hold it near and dear to your heart like we do, there is a guy who, I don't know if he's actually British. I can't.
He recreates scenes.
But he recreated the best one from the first movie. And he's like, it's you that has to go on, Harry. I just know it.
It's so bad.
Not me. Not Hermione.
And you know the acting gets better with each movie.
Yes.
Oh
no, you can't. You can't. It's so. And then they did one with helium, and it is.
Oh gosh.
Ellie loves the one with helium. She wants to watch it over and over again. So
it just has you rolling in the floor.
But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's a crime to go to Orlando and not go to Disney World or Universal. But he didn't.
I'm going in January.
I know.
I'm sorry.
But he, she was saying she was sorry to Fletcher, not me.
Yeah, I bopped Fletcher on the nose. I didn't mean to.
So, but I mean, he did. He went. But he did say that the night that he went for a company thing. And the night that they were supposed, like, they could go to Magic Kingdom, it was like thunderstorming.
Oh.
Yeah, he said it was bad. Like, you know, obviously he was like, if his son, because he was like, if he came with me, obviously, like, I would have gone. Yeah. But he also said there that, like, before lightning or like thunder strikes, that there are these alarms that go off by the pool. And he said it sounds like a fire alarm, like going off out by the pool. And he said it was so weird because you would hear it go off and they were like, what in the, and then all of a sudden you would see like thunder and lightning and stuff like that.
That's crazy.
So I thought that was kind of funny, but I still had to give him a hard time for not going while he was there. I was like, I could have gone with you and I would have gone and it would have been fine. It's fine. It's fine. Not bitter. No. I would have wanted to go to Universal though. Yeah. So, but anyways, that's it for us this week. That is all. And we have a website where you can find any and all ONUC information you are looking for. It is onenationundercrime.com. We are One Nation Under Crime on Facebook and Instagram. And sometimes you get to see photos of the podcast mascots. One of which is click-clacking his little toes around us if you can't hear him. His photo is on there. And so is Claire's. Knox has not made his debut on the Instagram yet.
He's kind of shy.
Knox, yes. His name suits him. So We are on Twitter at ONUC Pod. If you love our podcast, and you do because you made it this far,
yeah,
tell everyone you know about our podcast. Recommend us to everyone you see on the street, and even those you don't. We don't know. Ghosts could have iPhones.
Stop it.
I don't know.
Stop it.
Get our downloads up. We do have a lot of listeners in a lot of countries, guys.
We do.
It is so crazy. And we have 2 patrons on Patreon. So that's so exciting.
But we'd like more.
Speaking of Patreon, if you would like to help with the cost of making and hosting
we would
the
like
show,
you to do that.
it'd be great. You can find us on Patreon. Just search for One Nation Under Crime. It's real easy. It's real easy to sign up and become a patron. There are different levels. I mean, it's as little or as much as you want, and we would love it. And it comes with perks. And if you leave us a review on your favorite podcatcher with a comment, screenshot it and send it to me via pigeon, via the internets, whichever way you would like to get it to me. And you will be the new owner of a sticker that I will mail to you.
A fancy schmancy snazzy sticker.
So nice. They're dishwasher safe, guys. So you can put them on bottles or whatever you want to.
Or cups. Or
Anyway, so we appreciate you joining us again this week. Hopefully y'all liked the episode this week. I know it was a little different than what we normally do. But it was better than
2 in 1.
It was a twofer, and it was better than having a 20-minute episode. So
yes,
tried to give y'all enough content for the week. We will be back to 1 case next week.
Yes.
And yeah, we will see you here same time.
Different crime. Just one
next week. And remember that there isn't always liberty and justice for all. We will see you guys again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.